Ready when you are.
I'm ready. I'm gonna call the committee meeting to order for the Madison Board of Ed. We have on our agenda, just 3 policies for review. You should have, policy summary from Chipman Goodwin in your packet. We will start with policy 5040, admission to the public schools at or before age 5. This, if you look at your notes, currently children who turn 5 after September 1 can be admitted through early admission waiver process. But Hartford decided to change things, so as of July 1, 2027, all children must be 5 years old on or before September 1 of the school year in order to enter kindergarten. We have chosen to eliminate the waiver process effective July 1, 2026. You will see the changes made in policy 5040, admission to public schools at or before age 5. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're following state statute, just going a little bit earlier. Did you want to comment on anything, Dr. Cook, or no?
No, we did run the process this year because we were waiting for this to be finalized. I will say my staff and I have been advocating for this change for years, and very welcome. Most states it is September 1, and you really do notice the younger children, when they start, and so this will give everybody a equal footing when they start kindergarten for the most part. So I think this is really welcomed that the state did this.
Or at least it will make it less of a spread, considering some people have red shirt there.
Yes.
Kindergartners for.
Yeah, we
into football.
pretty big spread sometimes in
Yeah.
age. You could have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old.
I was a 4-year-old baby.
I was too.
See, and look how good we turned out, but whatever Hartford says. Does anyone have any comments, questions, problems with this policy? I would recommend that we can fast forward this and take the second read. Does anyone have any objection to that? Look at this, you guys are like right next to me.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like watching tennis. All right, then we will recommend this go forward to the full board, waiving the second read. That's like my house. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. Next policy. Policy 5090.9, use of private technological devices by students. This policy has been updated to reflect our recent April 28th action of cell phones in school status. We voted as a board to recommend no phones bell to bell. You'll see the changes in the policy 5090.9, use of private technology devices by students, formerly electronic communication device. Did anyone have any comments or questions on this policy?
Now, there will be regulations that accompany this and follow the new.
So the regulation is in your packet.
Yeah.
Regulation number 5090.9, use of private technology devices by students. There were changes made because we already had a regulation. So the changes follow the new policy.
So I think if I can point down on the regulation, I think just to be transparent, the piece that may be a little controversial on this is that my recommendation, my reg is allowing students to keep the cell phone on them in the backpack as long as it's turned off and not a distraction. This comes from conversation with the high school administration, high school teachers, and high school students. They really have been good. I think our high school students have been very compliant with current policy. I think for the most part, they understand the move. I think we'll have some pushback, when it actually goes into effect, but a lot of students I talked to said, yes, we saw this coming. We weren't surprised. We know the state was, going in this direction. The state will get there eventually, I'm sure. But I felt like this would be, trusting our students, and also, they don't use backpacks. Lockers. They talked to a few students. They like, I don't even know where my locker is. Dr. Cook, I haven't been there in 3 years, and so, I think this allows them to kind of start the day You could have a student that has a class on the first floor and then, but has to get to the third floor for their locker. So, we really felt like this was, trusting our students in a good way. If this ever became a problem, we'd be bringing it to the board and looking at changing it differently or looking for another tool in terms of implementing it. But, it's really I've been pleased with the reaction of the high school students, staff, administration in terms of the.
So the comment that I have on this is, so you're saying that they're going to be off, but this actually reads as silenced.
Silence.
So I feel like that's vague, because to me, silenced means I put it on like do not
Silent.
disturb,
Yeah.
mute, whatever, but it's still on. And certain things can, if not, programmed properly, can still be used. So my suggestion would be to change silence to off,
That would.
because there's very
Keep it
clear.
from- Keep it from the
Yeah, because of
smartwatches. Yeah.
So in the policy, it's in the first paragraph, line 9, where it says. Effective July 1, 2026, students may continue to possess privately owned technological devices, but the devices must be silenced and stored for the duration of the academic day, bell to bell, in accordance with rules and procedures set forth and the administrative regulation associated with this policy. So I would suggest to be very, very clear and to not have any ambiguity to say the devices must be off. Now, I guess the question to that would be, would their watch need to be off, because that's a device? Not all watches work only with the phone. You can have a watch that has its own number.
Yeah.
And then it would still ring through.
Not only on number like mine that has the same number as mine, but it, you can get cellular service.
Right, you get
for
cell
your
service
watch.
just through your watch
Yeah.
versus only when it's together and using Wi-Fi. So that I think is like a gray area, because how can you tell if someone's watch, right, is
Synced and or operating as their phone.
so, but at the very least, I think if we say off here, if there's a problem going forward in the future, then you can say, well, we said off, your watch was on. Don't have it on.
Yeah, I think there has to be some, piece of implementation by the teachers was what I felt like, but, no, I understand the point. I would err on staying away from the watches as much as possible, because the other thing that does, you tighten up too much, now you're gonna have more students look for, exceptions,
Right,
try
yep.
and carry
Gotta
the
get around
phone.
it. Oh, they'll get around it.
Yeah,
They're good that way. We
yeah.
got a smart bunch.
Teachers don't have, I mean, it may be because the phone has been available, at certain times to students. We haven't heard any issues with watches to date.
Well, I wouldn't say
Except
singling
the
them out.
elementary
I'm just saying I would change silence to off
Off.
so that there's no
In the rest.
gray area there. And then, but just knowing that there could be a problem with the watches, I think there are probably fewer watches that are not
Yeah.
linked through the phone, and if we just. Ignore it
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
So, what is your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, so let's make that change then, and change in the policy line 9 must be cross out silenced, make it off. And then in the regulation, we would do the same thing, where it would be. Line 13, devices must be off, not silenced. Did anyone have any other comments or changes or anything? In the rest of the policy? I didn't actually look through to see if it was written anywhere else, but. So can you just, if it's written the same, just make the same change anywhere else? I just didn't see it.
It is on the middle school, so we'd have.
Oh, okay, so I figured it was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's line 24 in the regulation, devices must be off.
Off
Instead of
and
on site.
placed.
Must be placed off
Must,
and off.
no, devices must be off and placed in lockers.
Oh, that's better.
Well. Get rid of comma on silent comma.
Devices must be off and placed in lockers prior to the start. Alright, so, and then just going through the same change anywhere else. So I think that this is a pretty simple change, there's not very many changes, my recommendation would be to also get this one through. So that if the policy is passed by the board with the waiving of the second read, then it's in place for the summer, everyone knows it going forward, and then fall comes and it's the policy.
Yeah, I agree that there's a bit of a time sensitivity there.
All right, so we all good with waiving the second reading?
Yeah.
Second reading? Okay. All right, let's put this one aside. Next one's my favorite policy in the whole world because it's the last one.
Even if it were that eyewash, chemical use policy, it would still be
Yeah.
a favorite.
Still. That does still bother me, you know that, right? Use your shoe to stop bleeding. Excellent. Right. Okay, last policy on our agenda for tonight is 5030.2. Inter-district school attendance areas. This policy has been updated to reflect the district becoming a sending and receiving district with New Haven. Technical changes have been made throughout. Who wants this done? Anyone?
When does this take effect?
Next school year,
Next school year,
however, we have not offered any seats for next.
Okay.
Because it's effective July 1, 2026, but you have to send the notice by April or something, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's March, okay,
March, April, I forget.
end of March, yeah, March 31st.
Do you have any thoughts on this? I have thoughts. Anyone like to hear my thoughts?
Go for it.
Yes.
I would like somewhere in this policy to say that before the positions are offered by the superintendent, that it has to be approved by a 2/3 vote of the board of ed.
Before any student is accepted?
Because every year, the positions are gonna be opened. And the reason for this is twofold. First of all, this was, I think, the only vote that I can recall in my, 6.5 years here, that was split on party lines. And that's because we had a huge discussion at the time, which you'll recall, but you weren't here, sorry, about. Because at the time we were talking about making the new school, did we have enough rooms for the number of students? Anytime the number goes up past what we consider acceptable for number of students per teacher ratio, then we make a new room, hire a new teacher, etc. And so at the time, we were looking at projections of population increases in different grades. And so just to be clear on how this works, is that when the superintendent identifies, let's say, for example, oh, we have, not a huge, let's say, 3rd grade class. Then we have X number of seats that you would consider available for the rest and for the, right? So then if those seats then are offered, and again, we don't get to choose in any way, shape or form who the students are that come, so that we can't pick like, football superstar to take from New Haven to bring to our district, right? It could be anybody, do not get to choose in any way, shape or form. And then once they are accepted in, they will stay in our district until they graduate 12th grade. With that comes the responsibility of paying for their transportation if they require lunches, if they require any other aid, if they require special education services, because the state, and correct me if I'm wrong, only pays a certain amount per student for transportation, whether or not it covers the actual cost. And then as a district, we had discussed this amongst the board that, how can you offer an opportunity to come to our school and not say that we will help you with transportation so that you can fully participate in our district by participating in our after school activities, whether it's athletics or a club or, vibe or, whatever it is. And so then transportation would also have to be accommodated for that. And all of that comes from the town of Madison taxpayers. So in addition, we also discussed that we never know who's going to move into our district or when they're going to move in or how many children they will move in with. So it is possible as a scenario that we could say, oh, we've got 2 seats in the 3rd grade available. We offer it up. It puts us right on that cutoff for teacher-student ratio acceptability. And then we have 3 families move into district with, 4 children in 3rd grade. And now we've gone over. And now to comply with our own policies and what we deem acceptable for education for our children, is that we would need to have another classroom with another teacher, possibly another para. And so that was the big discussion at the time. And it was definitely a split vote as to whether the board wanted to expand this to New Haven. And then Seth, if you would like to expound upon the reasons why it was voted for.
Yeah,
did not-
well,
Just one piece while he's
Sure.
getting his thoughts together. So the rest does handle the transportation, so we wouldn't pay.
Not anything
No,
ever.
so I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't pay for the to school and home
Right,
transportation.
but we had discussed, we wouldn't want them to not
Correct.
fully participate in our district. And therefore, I mean,
So what I would see those funds that come with the student being available for that, that's what I would say would be used for that.
and I don't recall what the funding is from the state exactly, because this was a discussion that was quite some time
Yeah,
ago.
oh, it has been a while. I might be dated on this for next year, but it's about $3,500 per student.
Per student per year.
Yes, because I never see us, there is, when you get to a certain number of students, you get like an additional money, available. I never see us hitting that number, so I would say with the lower number.
And so
So-
then, sorry, I'll.
go ahead.
Just to follow the train of thought, so if a student comes from, let's say, New Haven. And we don't participate with the federal school lunch program, so then we would have to go supplement that. The lunch
Yeah,
program,
so they see the,
and
pretty
so
much,
that
yeah.
money would help pay for that.
that would also be, yes, on all the money that received, I would say we're using to support the students that are, whether it's lunch, transportation for them, transportation potentially for their parent to come to a parent teacher conference if needed, things like that.
And I'm sorry, the amount was like about 3,000 or something.
$3,500, yeah.
And so then I would also point out, just as our district is, I think, pretty well known for having a very good special education program. And so the thought process there is that we all know that one special education student can cost a lot of money. And that the cost for that special education for that student, if they are coming from New Haven in this program, is not going to be paid for by the state. That's going to be paid for by us, yes?
New Haven.
New
So
Haven pays it?
you bill New Haven, for anything, just like when a Madison student goes to New Haven, they bill us.
And does that completely cover the cost? Will they pay?
Yeah, yes, I mean, they pay, in the Hartford area, the city of Hartford paid for the fees, so if a student had 1 hour of speech or special ed or a halftime para, that you send the bill to New Haven.
And so there's never a scenario that you can think of where the taxpayers of Madison would be covering it.
I wouldn't say that, I don't think that it's a perfect system, I don't wanna pretend or portray it to be that all the funds are received from the city district or things like that, or that this couldn't change, so I just wanna be careful in terms of setting up the expectations.
So the pro side of the argument pretty much went like this. We are a very homogeneous district. And it benefits our students, our home living students, resident students, tremendously. To meet and engage with and become friends with people of varied backgrounds from theirs. Not only are we homogeneous in terms of race, but we're homogeneous largely in terms of, relative socioeconomic status. And maybe not homogeneous, but maybe our floor is a lot higher than New Haven's floor, and our ceiling obviously goes way higher. A majority of the board, without reference to party affiliation,
It was 5-4.
yeah, I'm getting to that. A majority of our board, the way I would characterize this, a majority of our board felt that our students had a lot more to gain than our taxpayers have to lose. Through taking on a relatively small amount of students with varied backgrounds from New Haven. It would enrich our program. And that's really, that's what it mostly came down to. But as Dr. Cook just shared, the Democrats were also concerned, is this gonna cost a lot? And we were, the Democrats were happy to hear that New Haven would be responsible for some of the bigger things that go with it, and that there's a per child $3,500 that, should cover most of it. Now I know that's not our per pupil expenditure, but when you're only talking bringing in at the most 40 or 50 kids altogether, across the whole district, that $3,500 is probably enough, for the additive costs. And then, you know, to the extent that there was a bit of a partisan divide, my question back to you, Diane, on the issue of whether the board should have a say over, I don't know if you're saying over individual students,
No,
individual spots.
I mean, like, because you can't
Should we
say,
open the 2 and 3rd grade?
yes, like,
Okay.
like he says.
Not evaluating
He
the student.
he
Okay.
identifies the openings that would be available that he would consider saying we should offer up.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the board should have a response to that, a voting response.
Yeah, okay,
That's
I'm
right.
glad you're saying that because
No,
that's
no,
a
no.
little bit better.
No, but you can't do it
The
for the
issue with
fun.
that, the issue with that is because we can't say like, oh, that kid's got special needs, they're not coming in. And by the way, our special needs program is right around average, if not slightly below average. So there's no argument saying that there's a plethora of people dying to come to Madison because of our special ed program. It just doesn't bear out,
I
statistically.
think that's true. Because we actually had
Yeah,
families
but you
come
have-
and speak at the
You mean
board.
percentage wise?
Percentage
Oh,
wise.
oh, percentage.
And you have the buy-in is very expensive to come live in Madison, right?
That's so worth it.
Yeah, our median house is now $776,000, something like that. So, if you just pick up and say, my child is autistic and I'd like to move to Madison to get special services, you gotta have them.
No, but I am saying that we
To
have
afford it.
actually had families come here who have said that they were told in their district. The district that you should go to is Madison for their special education services,
Yeah,
and then they moved here.
yeah, and then, well, and if they can afford to, God bless them, and they're paying taxes here and they're welcome. They are very welcome as far as I'm concerned. But the other thing is, if
But
New
my
Haven
point was
gets
is
the
that
bill.
people are saying that.
Yeah, well, but if New Haven is getting the bill anyway for those services, then that's a wash, right? And then, the other thing is, if we want to have a say as a board in whether we're going to open up spaces, to me, that's just going to always continue and artificially foment the partisan divide, because every single time we have 2 spots open in 3rd grade, 4 spots in 5th grade, a spot in high school in 9th grade, whatever, then where's the incentive for the party who voted against this to begin with? To say, oh yeah, sure, let those 7 in or whatever,
Well,
because, it becomes an artificial bar
no, I don't think
or
so.
a constant partisan bickering over whether or not to allow, when the majority of the board at the time we voted for this agreed that it would be beneficial for our students just as much as it would for the other students.
So I think the important thing is that once you make a commitment to a student, you're in. Right. And I think the focus should be on providing the best educational opportunity for all students, whether they're coming into the choice program or they're here. I don't think it's necessarily the role of any student just to be undertake a performative aspect to teach diversity to others. I think that's not the right focus. I think we're blessed with a great school district and a great superintendent. And teachers, thank you, and relations are good. My concern is that because you're making a commitment, it seems to be like an open-ended expense and commitment with no limiting principle. And I think in terms of governance, it would be better to have some degree of board oversight, or at least an agreement with the superintendent, we're not always gonna have a great superintendent, I would hate for this to be the hill that anybody dies on. You know, and causes the board and administration to be at loggerheads. So I think that. My two concerns are basically that it's open-ended. And that there should be some sort of oversight.
I think we'd have to check with with our legal on that, because in an area where the state. Legislates. And does not. Delegate specific authority to the town to change the arrangement. Arguably, the town does not have the legal capacity to change the arrangement. So this is one we have to tread carefully and check with.
But I'm not sure I understand that though.
It's like federal preemption of state law. It works the
Right.
same way with state preemption of
Right.
local law.
But
So if they say, here's how the program works, if you vote for it, these are the rules. The rules don't provide for an oversight on the board's part of a per placement.
so.
But I don't think it says that they can't.
And that's, it doesn't specifically. it
Right, so
doesn't
you're saying let's
specifically
have them weigh
say it
in,
can't, but that's why I think
Yeah.
we need legal.
okay, and before you say, what, I want Maureen to weigh in,
Yeah, I'd feel better getting the legal point of view as well.
for sure.
You know,
I mean, we always get,
Yeah,
we
Which
use
steps up.
Sugar and Good Wins so much.
I don't see the reason why the board would need to be involved and have the oversight.
I think it's a protective-
Could manage that.
I mean,
and be
It's
careful
not
what the
that the
board takes on
superintendent
too.
can't manage it,
No,
that's
no,
not what I'm
But you
saying.
gotta be careful what the board takes on too, because if we, if we buy it, we own it. And, if the board wants to have oversight and one particular kid ends up being a bad seed, then people are gonna be coming down on the board for allowing that kid to be in our
I-
district.
It looks like a bit of overreach to me from the board's part.
well, so the board is in effect making a one-time decision to grant the. Administration unlimited authority to accept as many students as is possible.
As
Is
he
that-
or
is that
she
accurate?
feels.
So-
accepted.
Not,
But yeah, any representative, it's not gonna go
about
about that for
Right.
kids.
So what I had said at the time, and before I answer your question, Galen, I would always bring the seats that I'm opening up to the board as a discussion. I would be against the vote on it, but I did say I would bring it to the board to say, this is how many seats I'm opening up. And to Galen's point, that's how it typically operates. I mean, I think there's discussions as you go through and times change and things like that, the board may say, we're concerned about class sizes in grade 2, I hope you're not gonna open up any more seats in grade 2, something like that, I wouldn't open up seats at Neck River at this point, I think.
Right, and to my point
I
was
didn't
that.
know that 3 years
Right,
ago.
when this discussion was first taking place, we were just having the formative plans of Neck River. And there was discussion of the number of classrooms, how many students could it fit, we were looking at the projections, over 10 years or whatever to see like. Is this gonna be big enough going forward? And at the time, I believe we had to make another classroom, we changed some configuration for another classroom. And took some space from somewhere else, and then after that, we decreased the overall, lost the words. Footprint, thank you, of the whole building. So like,
Says the podiatrist had trouble finding it.
oh my gosh, right, okay, so anyway, so my point is that, at the time, it was very much at the front of, I think, all the board members' minds of classroom size, number of classrooms, number of teachers, and that the impact that this could have, because we were already looking at growth, right, at a projection of growth over X number of years, and then building this school where you don't want to make it too big, but you don't want to make it too small. And so everyone was, I think, very much in tune with that and being concerned with that. And I'm not saying that it's not a concern now, because as we saw just from the first year of Neck River being open, we're already moving the pre-K to Brown, because there's so many kids at Neck River to begin with, right? So looking at that scenario and realizing that, we may not have the same superintendent forever, we certainly aren't going to have the same board forever either. So, it's gonna change every election cycle. And I feel like it's important to have whatever sitting board is there and whatever sitting superintendent is there to make sure that there's oversight. And it's not to, handcuff him so that he's not able to do what we want him to do. But to make certain that it's not gonna be like, well, 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 9, Board of Ed members didn't want him to open up seats and he did, and now he's coming up for a contract renewal. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, here's my feeling on that. We have tended over the years to have a board, and this is a long time standing. And this is why we've developed a reputation of being a pro-education town. Members of either party have been very focused on the success of the district. We have a superintendent right now who we all agree has been incredibly focused on and dedicated to the success of the district. So I don't see any time when this superintendent, and I'll get to the fact that he's the steward for now. I don't see a time during this tenure where this superintendent is going to enter an arrangement that will harm the overall success of our district. So I don't think we have to worry about that. And I also think that in almost every other area where we could impose oversight, but we are smart as a board to refrain from crossing the line into micromanaging our superintendent with a lowercase s, like generically, right? Not just this superintendent. We've been pretty good with that. And to all of a sudden make this an issue where we need to impose oversight rather than allow a very strong business-minded managerial superintendent the ability to manage it, I think is unnecessary and out of sync with our typical board outlook. And if in the future, if there is an issue with a future superintendent down the road, then the board can always revisit the policy and say, we no longer want to have this. Right?
But why not build the safeguarding now? Because we don't
Because we may not be able
ever
to.
write policy for now. We don't ever do that. I mean, except for like the weird definition changes that they do every year. But with regard to like generic policy, we're setting policy so that it doesn't have to be written yet again. I mean, we've done a lot of work this year getting rid of policies that were like too specific or too outdated or whatever. This is about going forward because it's not this superintendent. It is a superintendent and whatever sitting board that is. And I'm sure you remember and know that not every superintendent is like this and not every board
I mean,
acts like we do.
we're balanced
Yeah.
now, we should have a check for later, that's all.
Yes, that's why I want it changed.
And I want to be clear that even though this has happened to fall along partisan lines where most of our votes don't. I absolutely honor and respect that there can be a position staked out by a side that there's a concern about taxes and about the kind of permanency once a student's in, they're in. I get that, and yes, it's a bit of a leap of faith that things are gonna go well, but we have safeguards in place to manage that. And so, I think we're better off allowing the administration to administer this. And certainly, we're best served by checking with council to make sure that we're not trying to do some kind of oversight that we're not permitted to do before we really take this on.
All right, so then I'm going to propose that we, put the change in that I want based on a vote first, if we vote that way. And then make sure that if that's so, that Shipman and Goodwin are good with it, and then it goes to the full board. And it can always be edited that way. I don't wanna do it the reverse this time. And
Well,
so,
depends on the votes, and I don't get one.
so, correct,
So can I try and talk you out of one piece of that?
sure,
So
do your
you're
best.
proposing 2/3. We approve a $65 million budget. majority. We approve pretty much everything we do except for board bylaws and other certain actions. I would argue that at a minimum, and I would say that you shouldn't go down this way of voting for it. Couple reasons being, in addition, or have been said tonight, but I know they've been said before. What in February of 2021, I received a form from New Haven that said, how many open seats do you want to offer this year, Madison? So we've been part of that before. When I inquired about it, they said, no, you don't participate in it yet. So then I inquired more and found out we weren't part of that area, but previous superintendents and myself in that time could have been offering seats. The other thing I would say too is that I think we want to, as Galen said, I do think we want to look at this long term and kind of say, you know, if we're committing to a student, we're there, but I would be looking at grade levels that have those open seats. And so certainly middle school and high school now, we do have those open seats. So that would be an area we certainly concentrate on. But in terms of the 2/3, I would say.
Okay, so that's harder. Let's negotiate. So there can be 2/3 of the whole board, there can be 2/3 of the members present. There can be majority of the whole board, there can be majority of those present. What's your pick?
It's like button 1, button 2.
Yeah.
I would say majority of those present, that's, you know, what most things are
What do you
decided.
think, Alan?
Um,
I know.
Majority. Yeah.
But I can ask
Okay,
the question.
I'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank
What do
you.
you think?
majority of those present.
Okay,
Yeah, majority present.
Seth?
Otherwise, you can't even vote if you don't,
Mhm.
if you just barely have a quorum, you know, whatever. Yeah,
And so
it would have
you
to
like
be-
that as well?
That's fine.
All right, let's hear the other side.
So I agree that it is out of the norm to say 2/3 of the entire board, because that is, again, we reserve that usually for bylaws, things that are much more permanent. So I'll concede that. So I would say I can go with majority. Do I want majority for majority of those present? Doesn't matter because we've got 2/3 right here saying majority present, so let's think again. What do you want? Majority present, majority of the whole board?
Majority present.
If you think
That's
about
like how
actually,
everything else is, and then we'll never be able to vote.
Right.
so I can envision a circumstance where we have 5 people that present at the board meeting.
Oh, sure, we've had that already.
And 3 of them are hardcore no's. You really want to be hijacked by
I mean,
3 people out of,
It can always be brought up again.
I hope the whole board says we don't have to vote on it, but if
Yeah.
the board votes on it, then
Yeah.
that's what happens. I mean, the same thing could happen with the budget, right? If something
Sure,
happened
sure,
budget night,
yeah.
people don't
You
like
guys
the
know what
budget.
somebody dies on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm willing to go majority of those present, if everyone wants that.
Yes, please.
See, I'm negotiable. But I do want that written in, and then we have to have Shipman and Goodwin look at it.
Okay.
And then this is the last one, right? And so we're good with that. Did anyone want to say anything else? I did.
Yeah,
You say something and then I'll say something.
sure. So, I mean, obviously we defer to your judgment and like, we have openings, that's fine, right? Right. But also, what about siblings too? Right? I mean. If you have a family in New Haven and they have a kid who's coming here who's a younger sibling. It
Right,
just
try and
makes
give preference,
sense.
you're right.
Right,
But does that happen? Do they give preference to a sibling? I don't, I didn't
It
think.
would be up to us in the
Okay, so what?
seats, but I really do, I mean, me personally would say, yeah, so the older student is having, the older sibling is having a good experience here.
right.
We would
It would
Okay.
try to just
make it,
maybe reduce.
yeah,
that.
for a family to have one student in Cheshire and one student in
Yeah.
Madison.
Alright, so then the one thing I would like to say is. To make sure that everyone understands, everyone who's listening, because I'm sure the crowd is huge. That, you know, we don't get to choose ever who the student is, right? Madison does not choose. So to argue your point about diversity. You know, you could get, you know, a Caucasian male Catholic boy come in from there, right? So.
Who happens to be rich, yeah.
I mean, you don't know, right? So to say that it's going to increase our diversity is based on statistics, perhaps,
Still geographical diversity.
yes, that,
City kids grow up very different than suburb
for
kids.
sure. But that was just my point, is that we don't have any say. We don't get to choose anything, any of the protected classes, gender, whatever, we don't choose. We just accept a student for that grade if there's a seat open. I just want to make that clear.
The other point I'll make, is when we started down this path, Guilford had just been approved, they hadn't started offering seats.
Mhm.
They are in their second year, next year being year 3, I don't know how many seats they offer next year. But I believe they have a total of 5 students, so it
And
has
that's for
not,
New Haven,
yes.
and
So
do
it's
we
not
know if
voted.
New Haven paid the bill?
Yeah, that's.
I haven't asked.
I was wondering if we do have like real world case studies.
That's what I would like to know,
Okay.
because it's well and good to say that they will, but what I wanna know is when the check comes due, are they paying? Cause otherwise we will be holding them.
I mean, I can speak for the Hartford area where pretty much every district does participate in choice. It's much bigger there. Because that was where Sheffield first O'Neill started and that was where the program started. So it's much more you know. Part of the process there. So that is large numbers. New Haven is not, has not had that type of participation.
So then perhaps before it gets voted on by the board,
I could
can we
Get some-
find some information from
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
districts participate with New Haven? Actually, like, malign New Haven or anything, but I want the facts. Alright, so we can work on that wording, Zoe,
Yes.
and then it'll go to Shipman and Goodwin. And then there are no regulations required for this policy, 5030.2 interdistrict school attendance
And then
areas.
is that coming back to policy committee or is it going to?
I think if we make that change and Shipman and Goodwin say it's fine, it just goes to the board. Would you agree with that, Maureen? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a big enough issue that the whole board.
And if they say it's not, it goes to the board or,
It should go to the board.
no, okay, so either way,
Cause I can't,
yes.
you can't make a change if Shipman and Goodwin are saying
We have
no.
no other objections with the.
No, I didn't, no.
Okay,
I mean,
fine.
did you have any other
Makes sense.
objections with
If
it?
Shipman and Goodwin says we can't do that, then we probably have to come back at a future policy meeting to. I know this is your last and I feel.
Do we have to do that, Zoe?
That's what
No,
I've been doing.
It would just be that clause that wouldn't be included.
Right, cause we're not saying there's anything else wrong with it, it's just that I want that one clause put in.
So we would just keep that clause out.
Out,
They said,
yeah,
okay,
and then it
okay.
would pass.
Yeah.
Are
Okay.
we good with that? So we want to put that clause in, if Shipman and Goodwin say, no, you can't, then it would be as is,
Without that clause,
without the clause.
to the board event.
And then it would skip policy and just come to the board.
How do you feel about that, Dr.?
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Because we're not saying there's anything else wrong with it, I mean, unless you have
No.
another
I
issue,
agree with that.
do you have any other issue with it?
No, I have no other issues of question. And
Okay.
then it would also be at your discretion to want to pull them down. For whatever reason in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, right, okay,
Or whoever will pursue.
okay.
Not saying anything bad or anything, I'm just saying. Alright, so then, so I guess that's it, 6:50, and we have a motion to adjourn,
Richard?
second,
So second.
alright,